I've just taken an Uber trip and got into such a wonderful conversation with the driver who shared with me what he was struggling with. He said, life has thrown him a curveball. And I laughed and I said, well, life has thrown me a curveball in the last few days as well. And we just had such a beautifully honest, vulnerable conversation where we were both able to encourage one another. We've got different challenges, but we've got the same human experience. And I was thinking about a couple of the events that I've got coming up in August, from burnout to brilliance, from procrastination to productivity. And really where all of these events start with is they start with this feeling of mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion, the feeling of overwhelm, the feeling that life has thrown me a curveball and I just can't deal. I can't show up in the way that I used to show up. I am tired, I am exhausted, I have nothing left to give. I don't know which way to turn. Isn't this a universal human experience? The reality is that this procrastination, this burnout, this exhaustion that so many of us are feeling, it's not something to be cured. And I think that's something that's really sitting on my heart today. I was chatting to a friend of mine about my branding not too long ago, and we were talking about this imagery of the phoenix. And I did mention I was going through a few challenges recently, right? And she said to me, you know what, Chantel? She said, think about the imagery of the phoenix. The phoenix rises out of the ashes, and then there's a fire, and it consumes itself. And then it rises again out of the ashes, and there's another fire, and it consumes itself, and it rises out of those ashes. And that is the message that I want you to take away today. I just feel like I just want to encourage you today. We are going to face the fire in all sorts of facets in our life. I often say to my clients, life will keep on lifing, right? We can't stop that. The fire is going to come. But it's always a question of how are you rising out of those ashes? How are you reinventing? How are you moving on? What are the lessons you are taking? What is the baggage you are discarding? And these are the questions that I'm asking myself these days. It doesn't make the going through it any easier, but it does make it easier when you contextualize the fire. When you realize that the fire is never going to stop. There is always going to be fire. Life is a series of peaks and dips. We're going to have incredible moments of joy and satisfaction and fulfillment, and everything is just going to work. And conversely, we are going to have periods where it feels like the whole world is against us. We've got to go through those periods in order to get to the fulfillment. And that's what I want to encourage you with. So remember, whatever you're facing today, if you're feeling like my Uber driver this morning, that life has just ripped the rug out from under you and you're gobsmacked and flabbergasted and overwhelmed and mentally and emotionally and physically exhausted, and you don't know where to turn, start by talking to someone. Share your story. Share what you're going through. Get vulnerable. Get curious about other people. Get curious about what's going on inside you, because the more we can unlock that curiosity, we can start stepping into the courage to do something differently, to look at our situation differently, to take a different action, to show up in a different way. And as we walk this path of curiosity and courage, over time, what happens is we build this strong core of confidence. And that is ultimately the 3 pillars of my Phoenix methodology. Everything I do, whether it's coaching, whether it's keynotes, whether it's facilitation, everything I do is birthed out of curiosity, courage, and confidence. You're not going to change the trials, but you can certainly change how you go through them and how you come out of them.